Hello and welcome to episode 43 of the Insider's Guide to Project Cars 2, where today we will be taking a look at the replay and spectator systems, and we'll start off with the replay system. Now, to actually access and watch any replays that you have previously saved, if you go onto the main menu, go into the My Profile section and under the Videos tab here, you'll see all the replays that you will have previously saved after a race, and these will all be listed in date order. So the latest replay that you have saved will be there positioned at the top, and it'll obviously list all the replays that you have stored on your system. Now, actually selecting one of the replay files, you'll get the option to either view the replay or you get the opportunity to delete it if you so wish to remove it from your system storage. So actually going to click view will actually go into the replay system. Now, to actually save a replay and get it there in that list in the first place, at the end of every single race that you actually compete in, when you go to the results screen, you'll get presented with the opportunity to actually save the replay. Clicking on that will then save it to the system, and depending on how long the actual race actually was and how much data is going to be saved in the replay system will determine how long the replay is going to save. So if you've been doing a very long race that goes on for multiple hours, it could take a good 10 to possibly 15 seconds to actually save the replay, whereas obviously all the shorter races, sprint races where there's less data, the actual saving of the replay could be much quicker. Now, one thing to note as well as this is that you can only save the replay for the race sessions. You cannot save replays for practice or qualifying sessions, but you can view parts of those sessions, which we'll get onto later on in the episode. So we're now actually in the replay system, as you can see, and I've just paused it. And we've got a whole bunch of various different things that we can control and view. Down the left hand side, we've got this leaderboard tab. Up the top, we've got a bit of an overview, and then down the bottom here we have our playback controls for the replay. We'll start off with the leaderboard section down here on the left hand side of the screen. And the very first column on the left is going to be the overall positioning of the drivers in the race replay that you are watching back. Any drivers who you are actually currently focusing on will be highlighted with this little eye icon, and then obviously you can flick between the various different drivers. If we pop that into the chase cam real quick, you'll be able to obviously flick between the various different drivers in the race. You can also do this on the controller as well. You can just switch between the various different drivers that you actually want to view. So the overall positions are here on the left. You then got the drivers' three initials in the next column, which allow you to identify the various different drivers. These can be set up in the driver network profile in the edit license section. You can choose the three letters that you would like to have displayed here in this leaderboard. The next column just to the right of that is going to be the car classes that each of the drivers are actually in. As you can see, this is a single class GT3 race. If there is multiple classes, then you'll be able to identify the various different classes, as obviously you'll have the class tag essentially be displayed here. And then just to the right of that, you have the class positioning. Now, there is a little bit of lag at the very start of this replay, so if we play this forward a little bit so the cars do actually get moving, you then get the class positions here. They were previously just displayed as 1 all the way down, but now that the cars are actually going, you can see here we've got the class positioning, and where this is a single class race, it's obviously listed exactly the same as the overall positioning. But if it was a multi-class race, so we had GT4 cars racing in this as well, it would have 1 to however many GT3 cars there are, and then it will have 1 to however many GT4 cars there are in total as well. Next up in this second to last column with the white numbers, you have the driver's previous lap time. Now, obviously, we haven't actually completed a lap here in this replay yet, so this won't have updated, but once we've completed lap 1, obviously the lap time that the driver set for lap 1 will occupy this column, and it will update with each lap as well, so you can kind of keep track of the drivers, what kind of lap times they're doing. And the whole spectator system kind of shares this whole leaderboard thing here as well, so it works quite nicely when trying to spectate or monitor other drivers within live sessions. And then finally, in this last column, we have the current lap number that the overall leader is on, and then we have the gap from each of the various different positions to the leader. So as you can see here, P2 is only 0.05 of a second behind P1, but if we jump down back to me in 16th place, I'm 2.23 seconds behind P1. So this isn't the gap between each of the drivers individually, this is actually the gap between the driver and the actual leader of the race. So now that the leaderboard is done, at the top here we've got the overview, and at the very top this is very simple. It shows the lap number that you are currently on out of however many laps are in total in the race. If the race is a timed race, it will show the amount of time that is remaining in the race instead of this lap 1 of 6, as we can see up here. You then obviously got the person, the driver that you are currently watching. So if I was to jump over to this guy here, obviously the name changes. It will show the full name of the player that you are currently observing as well. And then below that you have the position of the driver that you are currently watching, and then the car class that the driver is currently in as well. And then you'll have the driver who is immediately in front of him in the position in front. So in this case, Castu is in 15th place, as we can see there. And then we also have the gap between myself and Castu. And then behind me, I've got the Franga. And as you can see, you've got the gap to the Franga behind, who is very close and almost drawing up alongside into a 3 wide position. So this is the overview as well, up here at the top of the screen. And then finally down the bottom we have the playback controls, and here we have a whole various different host of options that we can flick between. Now this button here will go back to the very beginning of the replay, as you can see. If we just let this play out a little bit and let this go, so there's that little bit of lag at the beginning of the replay, and then things start going quite nicely after that. We've then obviously got the option to pause and also resume or play, as you can see there here in the middle. Then either side of that we've got the option to go back very slowly in slow motion, so we can go back at 0.75 speed as it indicates here. If I press the button again, you can slow it down even more to 0.5 speed, and then we've got 0.25 times speed as well, and then clicking it once more will go back to real time. So if I pause that and then play it, you can see it's indicating there in real time. Likewise, I can go into slow motion as well, so I can go 0.75 speed, I could go to half speed at 0.5, and I can slow it right down to 0.25 speed if I really wanted to as well, and get some nice slow motion shots in the replay. Then either side of those two buttons we've got the simple fast forward and rewind. So this is obviously rewinding at 2 times speed. We've got 4 times speed and a 5 times speed. Clicking it again will go back to real time as well. And then likewise with fast forwarding, I could go 2 times, 4 times, and then 5 times. When fast forwarding it, clicking it once more will go back to real time speed. So if we just very quickly go ahead and pause this replay, let's do it round about there. Obviously here you've got the actual timeline, so you can see that we're 44 seconds into the replay out of a total of 15.35, 15 minutes and 35 seconds. Obviously if I fast forward this now, you can see that this white bar is filling up, and that is basically a little indication as to how far the replay you are currently when watching it and viewing it. Obviously, like we said, the speeds that the replay is actually playing at is listed here. Then on the right hand side of that we have the option to go into the photo mode. So if I really wanted to, I could go in, hit the photo mode button, and then I can go ahead and take control of the photo mode. And we did a whole episode on this back in episode 37 of the Insider's Guide series, and that basically gives you an insight to all the various different options within the photo mode and how to utilize it and its functionality. So continuing to play the replay out, then we've got various different views down here. Now we've got a bunch of locked views, and then we've got a bunch of rotating views. Currently we are in the trackside cam at the moment. I'm not too sure why I had the chase cam highlighted, but we are in the trackside camera, as we can see. But if we go into the lock views, we can choose to go into the cockpit view, as you can see here. So we get a nice onboard from the driver's perspective of the replay. We then got the option to go into the chase camera. We then got an option for the roof camera, and finally an option for the bonnet and also the front bumper cam as well. Now with these lock views, you can simply click on the button and it will stay locked to this view until you choose to change the view to another one. If I was, for instance, to go ahead and click the onboard of this rotating view, what it'll do is it'll cycle through the various different onboard views that are available on the car. So as you can see, at the moment we're on the roof camera, and now it's just automatically switched to the chase camera, and this will do this automatically after 10-15 seconds or so. It'll just cycle through the various different onboard cameras in a random fashion. So it'll just go for whichever one it fancies going for next, and you don't really have any control of it. Next up, you have the trackside cameras, which are kind of more the traditional replay cameras. As you see, a nice crash there in the background. And here, obviously, it will go through and cycle through the various cameras depending on where the car is around the circuit. There's various different effects that you can see going on here as well. The cameras will zoom in and out, they'll pan and track the cars. You do get some cameras that are on splines and will move and kind of chase the car around or move up and down, rather than kind of being in a static position as if it was fixed on the platform. So there's various different nice effects with the replays, and they're kind of more based around what you would traditionally see in a real world race, and the kind of replay angles that you'll see when watching some of the races in the real world on TV. Finally, in the rotating options, we have all, and clicking that will cycle between basically alternate between the onboard rotating cameras and the trackside rotating cameras. So as you can see, we're on the bonnet cam at the moment. It's now just gone to the bumper cam. At some point it will flip to the trackside cameras, and then you've also obviously got the various other cameras that are available as well. So we'll just leave this on the trackside cameras for now. Down here in the bottom right, we've got the option for displaying the map, which isn't working because I have the map turned off in my options, but they'll bring up a map in the top right hand side of the picture. It'll show an overall track map, and it'll display where all the drivers are actually positioned around the track, and you'll be able to see them all moving and everything like that. Next up, we have a little button here for the overview, so I can turn that little overview off up in the top of the screen there. And then finally, we've got an overall interface button that we can hide, and this will hide absolutely everything in terms of the interface. And then essentially pressing back or right click on the mouse will bring the interface back up, and you'll be able to watch it and view it here. So this is the replay cameras. When you're in VR, clicking on the trackside cameras will allow you to go into these VR cameras, and essentially what these are, fixed positions around the circuit at various predetermined points, basically as if you're stood there at the track in real life. So they generally tend to be in good spectator positions, and then you can cycle between the various different VR cameras by using the plus and minus key on the numpad. That will allow you to cycle through back and forth between the various different replay cameras and move around the circuit to follow the action. Obviously this is something that's only available on PC with the VR implementation there, and you'll only be able to access these when actually in VR itself. You'll be able to access them by clicking on the trackside option. You can obviously then cycle through the various other options as well, the cockpit, chase, roof, bonnet and bumper cameras. So things do work a little bit differently there in VR. So some other replay options that you have available to you is in the pause menu in either a qualifying or a practice session in single player. Whenever you go into the pause menu, you get the option here to view the replay, and you'll be able to watch back the last 2 minutes of the session that you have just done. Now I haven't done the whole 2 minutes, which is why it is roughly around about 1 minute 25 odd seconds, but it'll essentially allow you to view up to the last 2 minutes of a session. As you can see, now I'm actually in a multi-class session. You can see the various different classes here down the left hand side, and then obviously you can see the positionings of the various drivers within each of the classes as well. Whereas where this is the start of the session, obviously that's all a bit muddled and jumbled up and not in a proper order, but once the lap times actually start coming in, that's when this will sort itself out into a proper correct order. Now when viewing this replay, essentially it's exactly the same controls as what we have just been through in the replay system, so I can go ahead and pause it, I can fast forward at any point through the 2 minutes of this short replay that I am able to view here. And then you can see me overtaking an LMP2 car. If we go on cockpit or the chase camera, you can see get very close to that other car there, and you can cycle through all the various different options and various different cameras. And there we go, picking up the cameras again. But yeah, that is also available to you in single player sessions. You can do that in the practice session, the qualifying session, also the race as well. You can't do it in multiplayer sessions because obviously you can't actually pause the game. However, what you can do is when you're in the pit box, you can go to the monitor and you'll be able to view the session live. And this is available in both single player when you're in the pit garage, but also the multiplayer sessions as well. You'll be able to watch the various drivers who are actually out on track and basically see their progress. You have an info feed down the side here, and this will give you basically an update of the lap times that various drivers are actually doing and setting when they've been driving around the track. And as before, you can cycle through the various different drivers that are here listed down the left hand side. No one's set an actual lap time yet, and we don't have any gap or intervals between any drivers because this is a qualifying session. It's not about overall positioning, it's about setting the fastest and quickest lap time. So those are kind of the options there. You obviously don't have the replay cameras because this is a live session. You then got the same locked views and rotating views as you'd have previously in the replay system. And then you obviously got the options to hide the interface. You can bring it back up again by once again clicking with the left or right mouse button or selecting the back button or any kind of another button on your controller. That will bring up the interface once more, and you've got the session, the amount of time left remaining in the session. But we do also have track condition stuff, so we can see the ambient temperature, the track temperature, the wind speed and direction. So as you can see, it's 3 kilometers in a south direction that the wind is currently blowing in. We then obviously got the weather conditions up there as well, and then we've got the vehicle status of our own vehicle. So you can see that we have 34 litres in our tank. Actually, no, these are the informations of the various drivers that we're actually flicking through. So you can see here the amount of fuel that the particular car has, and then you can also see a bit of tyre information there, so you can see that they are on the hard slick as well. Now coming down the bottom, we also have a speedo that we can bring up down there in the bottom right, so we can see the various different details of them braking and accelerating, their speed, what gear they're in, how hot their engine oil temperature is, although that seems rather low for those kind of cars, and then obviously their fuel amount as well, and then obviously any assists that they're actually using. And then we also have the timings, and here you can get a detailed overview of the various sector splits that the drivers are actually doing. So if we jump to Stephen Dunn, you can see that he is in first overall. He's first in his class. You can obviously see the class there. He's in the LMPH, and clicking on that confirms that he's driving the Audi R18. Obviously the driver name, what lap they're on, or how many laps they've done in the session. You can then see their last sector splits for Sector 1, Sector 2 and then Sector 3. Their last lap, their fastest lap of the session, and then the gaps between the laps that have actually been set from, and this is all down to first position as well. So you can see here that eighth place, or the driver who is in 8th overall but first in the LMP2 class, is 5.35 seconds slower than the overall, the guy who's currently in pole position overall. And then we also have a status down the side here, so this will indicate whether they're actually out on track, driving around, or whether they are in the pit box, like myself. And then any penalties that any of the drivers have picked up will be listed down here on the right hand side as well. And here you can see the info feed saying that the fastest lap by Stephen Dunn, who is currently in first overall, has been set with a 140.913. So that is the kind of information that you can get from the monitor, and like I said, you can do that in both the single player and also in the multiplayer sessions. And then the last thing that we can go ahead and view is the actual spectator system. So in order to actually get to the spectator system, you essentially need to retire from the race. So here in this single player session, I essentially just jumped into the race and then immediately retired from it. And we can get into the monitor here, and then we'll be able to watch the action live unfolding as the AI are battling it out on track, as we can see. So that is one way that you can get into the pit monitor. And once again, we've got the leaderboard stuff down the left hand side here. Any names that pop up in red in these overall numbers will indicate that they have gotten and received a penalty, and then obviously bringing up the timing section will indicate as to how big their penalty actually is. And then down here on the far right hand side, you can see this little exclamation mark icon. That essentially indicates that the driver is within a second of a car ahead, or around a second, and a second to a second and a half, I think it usually is, to the car ahead, and kind of indicates to anyone who is spectating that those cars are close and potentially battling. So those can be some nice visual cues for anyone who are kind of looking for watching battles out on track. You'll be able to jump to that driver with the exclamation mark, and you'll be able to see that they are pretty close to the car in front. So in this case, you can see here that the second place is relatively close to first place within LMP2, that is. But however, LMP2 has obviously dropped off the back of the LMP1 field, as we can see them up there ahead in the distance. So this is obviously the spectator system. All the view stuff is exactly the same again with the broadcast overlays as well. You have that all down the bottom, and then you also got the info feed down there on the right hand side as well. Now obviously, if you don't make, in a multiplayer session, if you don't make the race ready timer at the beginning of the session, then you will essentially be forced to either spectate or actually exit the lobby. You need to click that ready button in order to actually join the grid. But if you do retire from the race in a multiplayer session, you do have the opportunity to actually spectate the race as well here in this pit monitor window, and you have these controls and these options, and obviously you can jump between the various different drivers and everything else like that to watch the action unfold in the session. Now I have one last insider's guide tip for this episode, and I don't think anyone, or not many people, are probably actually aware of this, but in community events and also in time trial, when you actually go ahead and load up a ghost of a driver, so if for example I wanted to watch Berserker's lap, I can add the ghost to my time trial session. If I actually go ahead into the time trial session, I can actually go and watch Berserker's lap as well. The functionality of the replay and monitor system with this is very, very limited to essentially just watching the lap, but at least you can actually be able to do it. So up here on the right hand side, if you simply click on the driver's name, it will go into the monitor here, and you'll be able to actually watch the actual lap itself, see him drive around. You can't pause or fast forward or rewind or anything like that. It simply just plays the lap out, but at least this gives you some indication as to the lines that the driver of the ghost that you have loaded up is actually taking. also get a rough idea of their breaking points as well. Unfortunately, you can't see the speedo option, so you can't give away too much information. And if you do load up multiple ghosts, they will be listed up here in the top left, just like the leaderboard of the spectator and replay systems. And you will be able to flick through the various different ghosts as well. Obviously, where I've only just loaded up Berserker's Ghost, I've only got the one option of following him. But at least you can actually, in these TT sessions, pick a faster driver, see what lines they're running, and get a rough idea of their breaking points to get an idea as to basically where they are finding their lap time. And then obviously you can go back there as well to actually exit the replay and actually start your own TT session. So that is going to conclude it for this episode. There is the broadcaster and also the director modes, which we haven't covered in this episode, and I will be doing in a separate episode in the future. But if you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to pop any comments or questions down in the comment section below. I'll try and get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Consider subscribing to the channel. It's very much appreciated, all the support that you've been given the series, especially the new influx of players that have recently come to Project Cars 2 and probably only discovering the series for the first time. It's very much appreciated having you on board and hearing your guys being supportive of the channel and obviously the series, and then obviously asking any questions that you guys may have. I can obviously help and interact and get back to you on those and try and help you out as best as I can. But yeah, thank you very much for watching for this episode, guys. Hopefully I shall catch you in the next one, but in the meantime, have fun, stay safe, and take care.